Another letter from my friend in prison. Written by ZachariusFrost. Featuring NeighratorPony. Hey guys, sorry for the lengthy wait for this, but I just got Robbie's letter in today. If you're new to this whole development, I strongly suggest reading my first post to make sure you're up to date. A lot of you guys mentioned in the last post that I am probably not the only one to have read the letter from Robbie. I assume that was the case as well, despite it being sealed when I received it. The prison does have about 2,000 inmates there, so I kinda doubt they have the manpower to sort through every single letter. I could be wrong, of course, but I really think that if the prison had read Robbie's letter, they would probably be sounding the alarm. Anyways, I got a few more things to say, but it's probably best I save that for the end. The following is my friend's letter, in its entirety.
Zach, glad to hear back from you, man. I appreciate you taking this seriously. Or, at least, for you continuing to humor me, if nothing else. I know I may have sounded sort of laid back in my last letter, but I really shouldn't have. Something really fucked up is going on around here, and no one is talking about it. Okay, so you remember that guy dentist that I told you about, right? Well, he's back now. At least, he's here. He's not the same, though. He used to be this sort of wisecracking jokester of a guy, but he's not like that anymore. He keeps to himself almost constantly, and I haven't heard him say a single word to anyone since he's been back. Sometimes I hear him mumbling to himself, but never to anyone directly. He just is constantly in this aimless stare, like he's dazed or just doesn't know how to function anymore. It's like his mind just cracked or something. I can't figure out what the hell happened to him, man. I've asked a few guards, but they still won't say shit. They just give me the typical explanation of him being sick. Whatever the hell that is supposed to mean. We were in the showers the other day, and I saw Dennis in there. He didn't seem to have any visible wounds or bruises. I managed to find out a few things about the skinny kid I told you about in my last letter. Number 1, he's fucking weird. Number 2, his name. Or at least the name he goes by is Dalibor. Ain't that some shit? Dalibor. Sounds like the name of some Pokemon or something. Now, I don't know if I'm spelling that right, or if it's his evil villain name or what, but I don't think I've ever heard of anyone named Dalibor before. I know he had something to do with what happened to Dentist, but I also know that wasn't him that I saw outside the cell that night that it happened. It couldn't have been. Unless the dude can run like fucking Usain Bolt. Dentist's cell is down the hall from Victor and Dalibor. As soon as Dentist screamed that night, I stared down towards his cell. The same place, by the way, that I saw that outline of the person standing outside of it. Now, Victor has told me the kid never left the cell that night. Said the guy was lying in bed when Dentist started screaming. Victor jumped up and went to the bars as the guards handled the situation. He said the kid didn't budge the entire time. I've talked with Victor a bit more about all of this, tried to get him to tell me what he knows. He did ask the kid what he was in for, as pretty much everyone does to a new cellmate. Now, I gotta admit, I thought for sure the guy was in as a sex offender or something. He just kind of gives off that vibe. Victor said the kid sort of smirked when he asked the question, and told him only 3 words in response.
I make fire.
He said the kid spoke with a thick accent.
Russian or some shit.
As Victor put it. Now the kid could just be lying to try and intimidate Victor or something. After all, if he is a rapist or a kitty dippler, it's not like he would just admit to that. But after what's gone on, I really think there's more to it than that. Victor doesn't like to say much about all of this. He would never admit to it, but I can tell he's scared. I could see it in his eyes, and the way he was just constantly looking around. He was really hesitant to say anything beyond that. But then I told him what I saw. Victor's eyes went wide open as I told him about the silhouette I saw stalking the halls at night. His lips almost seemed to tremble below his goatee.
What'd it look like?
He asked, almost sounding desperate. Just like a guy. I don't know. I couldn't see that well. Victor seemed disappointed by the answer. I didn't tell him this, but the way he asked what it looked like, rather than he, really made my blood go cold. It's like he knew about it too. That was the last time I got to talk to him. 2 nights ago, he assaulted Dalibor, and he has been removed from general population for the time being. They probably got him in the hole, so who knows when or if he'll be back. I feel bad too. Victor's on his last year of his sentence, and was slated for parole in June. But he'll probably get a lot more time now. Dalibor got some cuts and bruises, but I'm sure he'll be fine. I don't know why Victor attacked him, but I have a good idea. I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but that very same night, I had probably the most terrifying nightmare I've ever had in my life. I was in some kind of forest, running and trying to dodge all the branches and shit. I kept seeing these symbols on the trees, carved into the bark and etched into the ground. Somehow, I knew I was being chased, but I didn't know what was after me. At some point, I came to a field with a huge bonfire burning in the center of it. I could almost feel the intense heat coming off it. There were people around it. People I recognized. I saw my mom, my younger brother, my old homie Terrence, my high school English teacher, and some dude I used to work with. There were a few others too, just a random assortment of my closest loved ones and people I barely knew. I did recognize them though. All of them. I also recognized Dalibor. He was holding a large metal ring, and tied to it were chains that were strapped around the necks of the other people there. Dalibor then threw the ring into the enormous pyre. It stayed quiet for a second, but then the chains pulled together. The people there began screaming and frantically trying to grab a hold of the ground as the flames dragged them into it. I ran towards them, but in seconds they were pulled into the fire by their necks, screaming horribly as the flames ate them alive. Their screams. God damn, it was the most terrifying thing I've ever heard. I awoke violently with my head throbbing and my heart beating a million miles a minute. Only a few seconds later I heard it. It sounded like 2 men were fighting, with one of them screaming profanities.
Fuck you, piece of shit!
I recognized the voice as Victor's. Within seconds the lights turned on, and 2 guards came rushing down the stairs. I quickly got up to see what the commotion was. I saw them enter Victor's cell and drag him out before hurling him to the ground. They got him handcuffed, but that didn't stop Victor from cursing Dalibor over and over. Dalibor rose up from within the cell. His face was bloody, but he didn't look particularly in pain from it. He looked happy, and was grinning ear to ear as if the assault was nothing more than a joke to him. His jagged-ass teeth looked like daggers in his mouth. His shirt was torn almost all the way off, and when he turned around, I briefly saw his back. In my last letter, you might remember me mentioning that Victor had said the skinny kid had brands on his back, right? I don't think that's what they are. They look more like scars to me. I only saw it briefly, but his back was covered in scars. I think Victor probably assumed they were brands because of their shapes. It looked like they had been carved intentionally, like Picasso had taken a razor blade to the guy's back. They were symbols of some kind, surrounding a giant symbol in the center. I couldn't tell what language it was. It didn't look like anything I'd ever seen. Anything. Except for the symbols on the trees in my nightmare. Closest thing I can think to compare them to is like Egyptian hieroglyphics. Victor was hauled away by the guards, cursing and staring back at the kid inside the cell. Dalibor was escorted out by another set of guards in order to tend to his wounds. Things were frantic on the block then, and eventually the guards managed to get everyone to calm down. Things got quiet once again, but I wasn't about to go to sleep. I was paranoid that the nightmares would return. As I lay there in my bunk, I realized sleep wasn't the only thing to be aware of. I kept looking over to Victor's cell across the hall. Then I saw a shadow move within it. I adjusted in my bed, confused as to how that was possible. After all, the only two occupants, Victor and Dalibor, had been taken away for the night. And yet I saw a shadow standing within the cell, just staring out motionless. I froze up as I realized what I was looking at, and just staring back at it. I must have blinked or something, because the next thing I know, the person is on the outside of the fucking cell, walking slowly towards me. I say person, but with every step it took, I began to realize that wasn't what it was. It was too tall, and its arms and legs were more like twisted and unnatural. It had no features, no face, no eyes, just shadow. I'll admit it, man. I was fucking terrified as I sat there in my bed, watching it creep directly towards me. "Close your eyes." The words came from Beto in a hushed whisper. I couldn't even respond. I was so scared. "Don't look at it," he added. I slammed my eyes shut, flexing my eyeball muscles to ensure they didn't open. I didn't know whether it would make a difference. The footsteps came closer, slow and methodic, and almost slapping, like wet feet on smooth cement. I heard them stop right outside our cell. My heart felt like a damn jackhammer in my chest. I felt my eyeballs quivering from how tight I was closing my eyes. The footsteps then took a few more steps, closer and closer. Somehow it wasn't stopped by the bars. It just walked right through them. I could hear it come to a stop just beside my bed. My heart was pounding like never before, and my hands were shaking like crazy. I heard the thing mumbling, whispers and curses falling from its mouth. I couldn't understand them. It didn't sound like the voice of a human. Everything within me was telling me to scream at the top of my lungs, but somehow, I remained silent. I actually started to cry. I was so fucking scared. I felt at any moment that thing was going to do to me whatever it did to Dentist. For hours it went on that way, with me clasping my eyes shut tightly as whatever that was stood a few feet from me. Despite shutting my eyes, I didn't sleep at all. Beto was silent the entire time. Finally, after I had begun to think it would never end, I heard the early morning alarm go off. All around the block I began to hear guys waking up. I didn't dare open my eyes until I heard the cells begin to unlock. Even then, I did it as slowly as possible, only for me to discover that whatever that thing was, it was gone. I was drained from the night, but despite that, Beto and I made our way to the cafeteria for breakfast. He looked every bit as tired as I felt. Neither of us said anything until we had collected our trays and sat down at our table. We sat with our usual group, but of course Victor was not there with us. Upon glancing around, I noticed Dalibor had also yet to return. At some point I noticed there was a guy who kept eyeing me. White guy, bald head with a tattoo on his temple of a hummingbird and a star on his throat. I tried to ignore him, to pretend like I didn't notice his stare. He just kept mad dogging me hard. for pretty much the entire breakfast. Sometime after that, we made our way to the rec yard. A couple of us got together and started shooting some hoops, and I hoped it would take my mind off the horrible night. We played for a while, when I saw that same white guy from breakfast approaching. He walked like he was on a mission, with clenched fists and narrowed eyes. My heart dropped in my chest, and I wondered if he was about to start some shit. We had him vastly outnumbered, but he didn't seem to care. Our group stopped the game, and just watched as this dude walked right on up. I've seen his type before around the yard. Russian mafia type guy. Normally, our set doesn't interact much with his, and the fact that he walked right up in broad daylight was really weird.
You got a problem, homie?
One of the other guys in our set, Marco, asked.
No, but you do.
He replied in a thick Russian accent, giving me a nod. Everyone sort of tensed up at that moment, readying ourselves for a fight. The dude kept looking back and forth at Beto and I. The guy then just chuckled.
I think you're going to want to hear what I have to say.
He looked at Beto, then back to me as he said it. I looked at Beto, and he as well seemed ready for a fight. The guy nodded his head, indicating for Beto and I to follow. I wasn't sure what to do, but Beto walked after him, and so I did as well. We walked to the end of the court, until we were out of earshot of the others. The bald guy then sat down at a table, and gestured us to join him. Neither of us budged. He chuckled again.
There's no need to be rude, gentlemen.
He sat back and folded his arms, eyeing us both once more.
I saw it go into your cell.
I felt my drowsy eyes spring open as he said it. You saw it too? I suddenly blurted out. Beto shot me an annoyed glance, and the bald guy just laughed.
Did you really think no one else would notice?
He stared fiercely into my eyes.
Do you have any idea what you've done?
I looked at Beto and back to the guy. We didn't do shit, Beto responded harshly. The guy honestly looked a bit surprised.
You tell me you didn't summon it?
Hell no, Beto replied. The bald guy's surprise grew even more apparent. He then shook his head and chuckled.
You're lucky you're still here then.
The guy took a glance around, and I approached, now suddenly very interested in the conversation. What the hell is it? The guy trained his blue eyes back on me and signed. Beto then took a seat beside me.
Something very bad. My mother used to tell me stories growing up. The shadows that come at night, that drink all the light. I did not think such things actually existed, but then I saw what happened to that black guy with the bad teeth. Back home, people call it Belach, the Dream Walker.
I felt dread building in my stomach as he spoke the words. Part of me wanted to just ignore the guy, but another part of me wouldn't let it go.
You have nightmares last couple nights, yes? Usually involving fire?
Beto didn't budge, but I nodded back. The guy nodded as well.
That's how you know it's around. That's what it does. It's a tormentor.
What? Like a demon? I asked, feeling foolish for even speaking the words. The bald guy just kind of shrugged.
Sort of, but not really. I don't think demons listen to humans.
He chuckled a bit, but neither of us did. What does it want? I asked.
To do the bidding of its master, the one who summoned it. I thought it was you, which is why we're having this conversation. But now...
It then clicked in my mind. That new guy. I said. The bald guy nodded.
Dalibor.
That was the first time I heard his name spoken. The bald guy then laughed again.
They probably should have realized that. Weird fuck.
He sat back and I thought for a moment. I looked over to Beto. and he seemed apprehensive. "Why is it after us?" I asked. The bald guy, whose name I still didn't know, shrugged.
It is after whoever its summoner instructs it to go after.
Beto then leaned forward and stared at the guy in the eye.
How do you get rid of it?
The bald guy laughed and shook his head.
You don't. It gets rid of you. Unless...
He gave me a knowing look as his eyes jumped, like I was meant to pick up on what he was hinting at. I did. I understood what needed to be done. He rose from the seat and went to leave when I stopped him. "Wait, why are you telling us this?" The guy looked me in the eye and just shrugged.
Someone had to.
He then walked away without another word, and Beto and I were left alone. Beto signed and rubbed his forehead with a hand.
You believe that shit?
He asked. I don't know what I believe. Still don't. But my eyes did not lie. You saw that thing, right? You had the dreams. Beto didn't respond, but I knew he had. How did you know not to look at it? Beto sucked his teeth and gave a small laugh.
Just some shit my abuela used to tell me. Don't acknowledge the shadows. Never really knew what that meant, but she always was the religious type. The idea just kinda came to mind in that moment. You know what we have to do, right? I mean, you saw what happened to Dentist, and Victor's probably... He trailed off, but he didn't need to finish the thought. I knew what needed to be done. That's where I am at now, man. Just in here, a sitting duck until that damn thing decides to come back around. I still haven't heard from Victor, and I'll be damned if I'm going to just sit around and do nothing while I wait for it. That bald guy hinted at a way to stop it, but I can't spell it out. Only one thing left to do now. Time to go watch the sunset. Take care of yourself, Zach. I hope this ain't the last letter you get from me. Robbie. I'm really starting to get worried about Robbie. I've tried calling the prison to speak to him, but so far haven't been able to reach him. I've tried researching the guy, Dalibor, that he spoke of. Thought maybe I could find what his sentence is online. But so far, I haven't found anything on that front either. I've researched the thing he called Palak. I've tried several different variations of the spelling, but I haven't found anything really useful. If anyone knows anything about what the hell a Palak or Dreamwalker is, please let me know. I really don't know what to think of all of this, if I'm being honest. Part of me wants to believe that Robbie is just pulling some kind of joke, but another, louder part of me says otherwise. That message he included, the one about watching the sunset, it's a euphemism. Used to be a running joke between us to imply killing someone. Long story behind it, and it was obviously never meant seriously. Only this time, I think it is. I think that was a code message from him to imply that he plans on taking out Dalibor personally. I really hope that's not his plan. I've decided there's only one thing I can really do now. The prison he's at is a couple hours drive away from me. I feel like I need to go see him in person to find out whether this whole thing is just a joke, or if he and the other prisoners are in legitimate danger. Regardless, it will be good to see him again. I plan on going out there on Friday after I finish up work. I'll try and update everyone then, so look for it sometime this weekend. I just hope I'm not too late already.